Howdy folks, this is Real Estate Ranger Eric speaking to you from the Real Estate Ranger headquarters at Century 21 First American in Tucson, Arizona. Today I wanted to introduce you just a little bit to the new contract and forms in Arizona real estate that became available March of 2011. So let's take a look at it. These changes were the result primarily due to changes in the RESPA Act of 2010. It required the issuance of a good faith estimate to a buyer, but it also regulates it because now it requires a property address before it can be submitted to a buyer. So we need new forms to address this. One of the first things you'll notice that most of your new contracts that you write or that you receive will now be attached to a new form called the pre-qualification form, or pre-qual. This form is designed to be completed by the lender after the first meeting with the buyer. It provides all the information on the buyer's ability to qualify for a loan before the buyer identifies a specific property for purchase. It sets forth the loan amount for which the buyer can pre-qualify and identifies the lender in detail. The new pre-qual form states a total monthly housing payment, a maximum interest rate, states an expiration date to this form, which is generally about 60 days, and requires a lender's signature and an Arizona license number. The pre-qual form includes other important information like marital status, because Arizona is a community property state. It specifies property types like single-family resident, townhome, or manufactured home, so forth and so on. And it's important to know that the pre-qual form is not required to write and present a purchase contract. They give you the option. But, in my estimation, most contracts will have the pre-qual form attached to it. Should the seller ever accept the buyer's offer without a pre-qual form? Probably not a good idea. So, most cases you're going to see this pre-qual form attached to the contract because that's what sellers want. The next form to note in the financial section of the new contract is the LSU, or Loan Status Update Form, which is a required document submitted by the buyer to the seller within 5 days of mutual agreement of that contract. What's on the LSU? The LSU is like the old LSR, or Loan Status Report, that in the last few years was a necessary part of the contracts in Arizona real estate. The LSR has gone the way of the dinosaurs. You won't be seeing many LSRs anymore, if any. The LSU is like the old LSR on steroids. It's got much more information and details. The buyer and seller identifies a specific property address. The buyer selects a specific lender. The LSU must be delivered within 5 days, and at a minimum, lines 1 through 40 have to be filled out. Repeats the pre-qual form, but that's just a backup because, as you remember, I just said that the pre-qual is not a 100% requirement, but most of the time you're going to see it. So this will be a duplication. Buyer instructs the lender to provide LSU updates upon request. So this form should be updated as changes occur. The seller and brokers may track the progress of the buyer's loan. The LSU also helps the lender to close on time. This is very important. It specifies a closing loan documents delivery date to escrow. It also specifies a close of escrow date. The loan documentation tracks the buyer's progress. Underwriting and approval tracks the lender's progress. And the closing sequence to funds in escrow. It tracks all this progress. So the seller can keep tabs on the process of the buyer's loan. The LSU is designed to cut down on last-minute DFTs due to buyers' inability to obtain a loan or lender delay. The LSU includes cure notice opportunities. A cure notice is generally submitted by the seller to the buyer if the buyer is thought to become in breach of the contract. The 3-day cure period notice provides the buyer with 3 days to fix the problem, or the seller can move to cancel the contract. So, you have several points along the way in the contract process where these 3-day cure period notices can be submitted. The first one is at the 5-day mark after mutual agreement. If the LSU has not been delivered to the seller can deliver a cure period notice to the buyer, and if the buyer doesn't comply, the seller can move to cancel. 3 days before close of escrow date, all the loan documents need to be delivered. If not, the seller can submit a 3-day cure period notice. The seller can move to cancel. Failure to perform after a cure notice becomes a breach of contract. The purchase contract is subject to cancellation. Do not pass the close of escrow date. So this is just a couple of things to keep in mind about the new contracts and forms in Arizona. I hope this helps you a little bit. I encourage everyone to work with a qualified real estate practitioner to get you through these forms. This is Real Estate Ranger Eric signing off.